is be true to what you said on paper.
Well, good morning. Welcome to At the Round Table with MAMLEO. I'm your host, Larry Ellison. Yes, folks, if you're watching this on the screen, you look and see where are all the other folks at? Dr. Bradley is taking a well-deserved day off today, and Rhodes would be here. Rhodes Pierre is stuck in Las Vegas due to that technical glitch throughout the country yesterday that affected flights. So my brothers are not here, so Pastor Hobbs and I are here this morning, and we're going to try to hold it down and get through the morning here. So, like I said, if there's any glitches in our communication, bear with us here. So we want to thank our sponsor, Cora Holbrook, the Money Store, for all your mortgage needs. Give branch manager Cora Holbrook a call at area code 508-345-4726. That's area code 508-345-4726. The Money Store. Who says money doesn't grow on trees? Also, some public PSAs this morning. Harmony by the Sea, promoting conflict resolutions, Inc. presents Harmony by the Shore, celebrating diversity and inclusion with the LGBT plus community. That's today, Saturday, July 20th. 2024 from 12 to 5 p.m. Come join us for fun, food, music, and conversation. That's going to be at the Tea Beach, 25 Conley Street in Dorchester. Again, that's Harmony by the Sea, celebrating diversity and inclusion, the LGBT community, plus LGBT plus community, I should say. They had that Tea Street. So, like I said, Renee Calendar is going to be calling in this morning. It's early, folks, so bear with me. He's going to be calling this morning to talk a little bit more about that as well. Also, coming up, the reading of Frederick Douglass, September 7th from 11:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Frederick Douglass Peace Park at 1000 Tremont Street, Roxbury, Mass. Join the Hearing Nurturing Center on September 7th, 2024 for the annual event honoring the resilience and progress of African-American leader Frederick Douglass. Boy, do we need that, and someone was telling me about that. Excuse me. I didn't even know that even existed, that there was a reading there for Frederick Douglass, the park there. So a lot of education there. And in fact, I was asked to take part in the reading. So I'm looking for, they want 10 men to read Frederick Douglass. I volunteered to be one. And if you'd like to join me, give us a call here, 617-282-0685, and join alongside me. I'm kind of recruit Pastor Hobbs. I know he has the voice. He's looking over at me. I figured I already got Rhodes and Dr. Bradley. I'm going to recruit them for this as well, because it's an important reading. And with what's going on in this country now, we need more Frederick Douglasses in our lives, because if not, we are going to be in some real trouble. Also, join us for the free Boston Praise Radio and TV fundraiser. It's going to be taking place here at Global Ministries Church, Christian Church, on fundraising talent search contest on Sunday, July 21st, 2024. That's at 6 p.m. at Global Ministries Church here at 670 Washington Street, here in glorious Dorchester, Mass. Again, that's a free talent show, fundraising talent contest tomorrow, Sunday, July 21st, 2024, 6 p.m. at the Global Ministries Christian Church. And again, if you want more information for that, give us a call here. Pastor Hobbs is here. He has more about it, and that's going to be from 6 to 8 p.m. Free admittance. Like I said, it's a fundraiser, folks. So you can, I believe can they cash app and all that? Yes. Oh, so all this thing. Okay, so you can cash app. So however you release your funds, they'd be more than happy to take. And it's a worthwhile cause. Like I said, people understand, if it wasn't for Global Ministries Christian Church, the radio station here, MAMLEO would not have this platform, even though we pay for our time, but the time wouldn't be available to be paid for if it wasn't for it. So folks, we really need to continue, especially with things going on in this country now. We really need to make sure that we're taking care of business, making sure that we keep this airway on stand. So with that said, Pastor Hobbs, before I go any further, would you mind, sir?
Sure, Father God, we bless you. We thank you for your mercy, for your grace, for another day you've blessed us to be in the land of the living. And we ask you to just bless this broadcast. Bless us, your people. Be glorified in and through all that's said and done. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. And with that, I want to say good morning to Brother Jamal. Good morning, Brother Dick. Good morning to my sister, Denise Pina Reed. Hope she's doing well. Good morning, To all our Adventists, good morning. Excuse me, folks. I said I'm just trying to get myself together this morning. Good morning, Brother Harry Scales, Mr. and Mrs. Harry Scales. I want to say good morning to you guys as well. And also say we would be remiss if we didn't take our trip. That's such an upbeat. Good morning, Brother Bridgeforth, down there in Indiana. Here we are. Here we come. We're down there. Good morning, my brother. I know he texted us last week, said he got up a little late, so we hope he's up with us this morning. I hope he's doing well down there. You know, also our condolences go out this morning to Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee's family, who just passed away recently, who was an active member of Congress, very advocate, very vocal in helping to bring Juneteenth, holiday that we celebrate, something we should celebrate every day, our pride and who we are. So like I said, may she rest in peace, and our condolences to her family. I know I've watched her work over the years, and I know it will be missed. It's hard to replace some of the icons that are out there because we're not really seeing a lot of that going on today. Also want to remind folks, MAMLEO will be holding, I should say, a community forum today at 12 p.m. at MAMLEO headquarters at 61 Columbia Road. And this has to do with a follow-up to the hearing, the community forum that took place on Thursday night at the 12th Baptist Church there on Warren Street. Was well attended, over 100 people in there, regarding the demotion of Deputy Superintendent Eddie Crispin by Commissioner Michael Cox. For what they said was now it's been downgraded almost like a hurricane. First it's going to be a Category 5, and now it was a conflict of interest. Now it's a perceived conflict of interest, and now we don't know what the interest is. As a matter of fact, now they're putting out there in the ether that it may be something else that we don't know about. We're not going to talk about it, but we'll just put that out there to disparage people in some way. It's just mind-boggling. And I think they weren't expecting this type of response from the community because Eddie has put the work in. People respect that. And in fact, they're saying loud and clear they want that. As a matter of fact, there was some in the audience that was calling for Michael Cox to be demoted from his position there as commissioner. People don't clearly in that room. There was not a lot of connection with his administration. And, there was numerous city councilors there. So Councilor Flynn, Councilor Mejia, who's going to be calling in the 8 o'clock hour. Councilor Worrell came there, was there also. And it was interesting that President Councilor Ruthzy was there as well. She showed up later in the day. And just one of the interesting comments from Councilor Flynn, who said in the public view audience there that it's really, and I'm paraphrasing him, but he was saying that, the Cox's chief of staff is really the one, in his opinion, who is running the police department. It's not just his opinion. I think a lot of us have that view, including myself. And it was interesting to hear it coming from him and his interactions with her. And to put that into perspective, folks, and the reason why we believe that to be true, and you can take away from it what you want, is that this individual, current Commissioner Cox's chief of staff, is former Commissioner Ed Davis's chief legal counsel. And she is one who, in my opinion, was responsible for a lot of the harm that came to black officers during her tenure there as chief legal counsel. And now, she, as I said in an interview, she's the other half of Commissioner Cox's brain. That should scare folks. And it's not just the officers who suffer from this. It is also the people in the community, because, in my opinion, she doesn't have their best interests at heart. Most people don't even know who she is. Your chief of staff needs to be someone who the community can, relate to. And I'm sure if they met this woman, they wouldn't relate to her whatsoever. It's really scary times that we're in right now. So, like I said, the community forum today is from 12 to 3 o'clock at MAMLEO headquarters, 61 Columbia Road. Like I said, folks, come on out and support this, because this is them saying to you they want to silence your voice as well as Commissioner Cox, because also during this whole tenure that is taking place, they have gone after MAMLEO's current president, Dr. Jeffrey Lopes, who was up for promotion to sergeant, should have been promoted to sergeant several weeks ago. And wait for it, folks, a week before he was supposed to be promoted, now there are some internal affairs that have been opened up, some really insignificant things they claim that he has done. And we all know that the timing smells just like some rotten fish, right? But now all of a sudden because when they open up an internal affairs case against you, you can't be promoted until it's resolved. Well, let me give you a little history on that, right? We have had folks who have had internal affairs in their file, and when the matter came up, if they liked you enough, they resolved the matter so it didn't hinder you from being promoted. And some have gone on, some have been recent, but this here doesn't allow Dr. Lopes to be promoted to sergeant. And that's one of the other things we're going to talk about today, because historically, MAMLEO's leadership, including myself, when I was president of MAMLEO, have been targeted for advocating for folks there. And then the Mayor Wu, doesn't escape this as well, because she has jumped on board and she's all in that she is supporting her commissioner, regardless of whether or not he's wrong. Just because he's her commissioner, he gets her full throated support. Well, there's a price to pay, folks. There is an election in 2025 for the mayor of the city of Boston. And I think personally, it's time for us to get a new mayor here, someone who understands and listens to the community. I think we have two elitists, in my opinion, as the mayor and the police commissioner, that are not listening to the people here in the city of Boston. So we need change, and we need it fast. Like I said, we're already going to see that if Donald Trump gets back in office. So we, don't think that, we're safe here in the city of Boston, we're safe here in the Commonwealth. No, we are not. These are people who have a D beside their name. So to me, it doesn't matter what letter they had beside their name. It's their actions, and their actions clearly indicate they're not listening to the people here in the city of Boston, people who put them in office, and maybe we need to get them out of office. So like I said, we have an opportunity to do so, and we really need to take advantage of that. And if we don't, we have no one to blame but ourselves. So again, we have work to do, and work needs to be done. That said, good morning, caller. Welcome to the roundtable.
I can hardly hear you, brother. I think you just introduced me and asked me to acknowledge I'm on the phone.
Yeah, can you hear me?
You there?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hold on for a second. Hold on for a second.
All right. So
I gotta get you intro.
Okay.
You there?
Yes. Can you hear me, Dr. Bradley?
I can. Maybe my phone is not turning. I don't know why I can't hardly hear you.
Did you only pay half your bill?
I heard that. There you go. No, I don't pay it. My wife handles all that, so I had to make sure that she did it. But she's right here. Okay. But listen,
good morning, Erica.
I'm sorry I could not make it.
Listen, you're here.
Take her to the doctor.
Listen, priorities, brother. So I understand.
Yeah, but so I caught a piece of your conversation,
yes,
and I got in the car about President Lopes from MAMLEO.
Yes.
And the opening of a case. They haven't resolved that?
No, they haven't resolved it. And even now, they're trying to disparage Eddie even more, because they realize by saying, look, let's be perfectly clear, because no one is not saying that the commissioner has the right. You served on the command staff as a deputy, so you serve at the will of the commissioner. So we all understand that. But usually there is a reason why. Sometimes it's just a matter of a change of administration. But this one here stinks to high heaven to say that the reason for the change here is a conflict of interest in him serving on the post, the police oversight standard and training, as well as the police department is a conflict. Now, here's his own. Eddie Crispin served in the deputy superintendent in internal affairs. He had access to way more information than he would at the post, because the post can go in and look for information, but really because of the size of the police departments because I served on the post until recently. Matter of fact, Eddie Crispin replaced me in that position. That you have to be looking for something. You just can't be on a fishing expedition, where everything that came through internal affairs when he was the deputy, he had eyes on it. So this whole thing, and now they're saying there are other things, but they won't allude to Dr. Bradley what those other things are. So you put that out in the ether to have people thinking that he's a bad man, and that's why he was really removed from there. But you suddenly wrapped it up. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
One of the things that I know that they do there is that they don't like it when the individual that they are going after tend to have some community support, because that they equate that to power.
Yes.
And so I don't think, in my opinion, this is Dr. Bradley speaking, I feel that they did not anticipate the level of community pressure they were getting, they are now getting as a result of that the commissioner's move. So that's one hit. The other hit is that they have all these little things that they do when they do not want a particular person. I think Eddie has fallen into that particular situation where has fallen into that particular situation where they feel that, hey, listen, he's too much. He's a black man with too much power.
No.
And so, and I also, and again, this is my opinion, I also see the hands of Ed Davis playing a role here.
Well,
No,
and you're spot on your analysis and everything that you've just said, right? Because folks understand Eddie Crispin was in the top 4 finalists for the commissioner's job.
Okay.
So that said how highly even the mayor thought that he should be at the top of the leadership in the Boston Police Department. So to say that he can't serve in any capacity doesn't smell right. And it was really good the other day, Dr. Bradley, the other night, because I was there. It must have been 200 degrees in that room, but people stayed there. There were retired judges there on Eddie's behalf. There were community folks from the community, but there was such a rich diversity and culture in that room. And I think this is something that they've feared for quite a long time. And there were over 100 people in the room. I mean, it was sweltering in there, and they stayed there and they work together, and they're not going away. Like I said, there is another community forum today at MAMLEO to take place there. But also, I want to just go back to what you said with Dr. Lopes, because Dr. Bradley, you have sat in that same position as well as I as former presidents of MAMLEO. And throughout history, not one president of MAMLEO has spared the wrath of advocating for our leadership. And now they are trying to say, in some ways, that we can no longer do that you will be held accountable for doing that, because MAMLEO is a nonprofit. You cannot tell a nonprofit what to do. And now they're trying to say, oh, we want to stop that. So there is a push here that should scare everyone, because this is almost Trumpian and alike, right? That when they get in, they want to shut down media that is not favorable to them and things of that nature. But also, you are absolutely correct, because all you have to do to tie back to Ed Davis is Michael Cox's current chief of staff. Nicole Taub, right? The head, the media relations person there is Marilyn Burns, Ed Davis appointee, right? You go back to Ed Callahan, who was there. I'm not sure if he's still there. Was brought back. These are all Ed Davis's people, right? Ed Davis getting a no-bid contract to be, once this detail operations is put in place, he will have sole options on all of the unfilled details that law enforcement cannot have. That's in this agreement. Right. I mean, and there's been crickets about that, but clearly Ed Davis's fingers, and this is Cox is bringing back people and taking advice, in my opinion, from Ed Davis, someone who MAMLEO, the Urban League, the NAACP, and even the Patrolmen's Association took a vote of no confidence against him for not promoting officers of color when he had the opportunity to do so. And Michael Cox is taking a page right out of that playbook, because this big pushback started when MAMLEO was saying, hey, wait a minute. We have officers of color who are in the high 80s. 89 is where they're in the mark right now. That's the current mark that Dr. Lopes has. And he has a PhD. And this is a very young, but he will not bow and kiss the ring. He is standing on his principle.
There's always been a pushback, though, on promoting presidents of MAMLEO. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's how. I'm not saying that it's correct. I'm saying that has been a modus operandi for that police department, which is what suspects me of Ed Davis. Mm-hmm. Is playing a role here. Yeah. And especially if that president has, like myself and Dr. Lopes, have advanced degrees. Mm-hmm. Because, again, we represent a significant threat to the leadership configuration, if you will, of the historical police department. Yeah. So it could be easy for people like him or I to move into the ultimate leadership position, which means that they will lose control because I don't see either one of us being, or anyone with that level of education being a puppet. I just don't see it happening. Could it happen? Absolutely, but I don't see that. So I think a part of this is their fight to maintain control of the police department. Another hit here is that the justification for relieving Eddie of that command post does not pass the smell test for me, because the purpose of the post is to ensure, from a state level, fair and equitable and professional treatment of police officers. It's a part of the reform of policing in Massachusetts.
See, this is
so
what
you will want to have a command staff member on that position, because it gives the police departments a heads up of what's coming down as it relates to administrative requirements that police department must undergo.
Well, this is why one of the reasons.
It makes no sense to me.
This is one of the reasons why I love and respect you, my brother, because that you anticipated my next question here. Well, right. So what came out of this is, well, the executive director Enrique Zaneta from the Post was present at the meeting, right, as well as some of the board members, the board members of the Post Commission, right. And Jamal Crawford did a presentation that I think that really was and it wasn't to embarrass, but it was to inform, to show the comparison of what the Post has done in a shorter span of time than the OPAT, which is the Office of Police Accountability and Transparency. But if you call the phone number there, right, it said there's a recording there that says it's Office of Police Transparency or something. It doesn't even acknowledge what it is. But also what he revealed, he went to the website for us and showed it. There were no dashboards for you to even put any information in, and this was installed way before Post was, right? Probably they had a 2-year head start with Post, and Post has been around for 3 years now, right? Do you know, Dr. Bradley, that they have only had one case in 5 years now that has gone before OPAT, that they have come out with a decision regarding an officer and the discipline, and Commissioner Cox overturned that. So that was glaring to people in the room, because again, it shows if this is supposed to be a separate and independent body, then how does the police commissioner have the final word? Because if there's a decision made by Post, you can go to courts and get but you can't go to your agency for relief. So it defeats the whole purpose of having oversight independent of it. And I think that's what they fear more than anything, that Commissioner Cox overturned this one decision that they had against an officer, and he said, no, that didn't happen. And they don't have that luxury with Post. That officer can appeal to a higher authority, but not to their police agency. And so there's that accountability there. So I thought, like I said, he went to several, there were no dashboards for you to even apply for this information. And then they just recently installed an executive director there after the previous one had left, and it had been dormant for 6 to 7 months. And even since he's been in there's been no improvement. So it's, in my opinion, it's just a sham. And that's what they want, is the perception of oversight, but still giving the final decision to a body that's not independent, that's someone, the police commissioner and even this executive who works for the mayor. Once Eddie was appointed by the AG's office, he is independent of any oversight, just as every other commissioner who serves in that capacity. They don't work for anyone, and that was designed so that not political pressure or worrying about your position there if someone doesn't like a decision that you make. Dr. Bradley, can you stand by? There's another caller on the line I want to bring into the conversation.
No, actually, I'm getting very bad reception. I'm going to go, and I'm going to call you back later.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Good morning, caller. Welcome to the roundtable.
Good morning, Larry. How are you?
Man, someone who sweated with me, who was sweating with the oldies, that should have called it the other night, right?
Yeah. But I hope people do come out today to the meeting, because it's very important that we stand up and speak out for our people. Yeah. This does not make any sense, and we need to let the powers that be know that it stops.
Right. So, Priscilla, what's the most glaring thing? Like I said, when you saw the reporting that Jamal put out about not having any dashboards, that in its name is Office of Police Accountability and Transparency, and the office isn't even accountable. It isn't transparent, and there's no so. If folks who probably are frustrated and feel like they're not being heard, but this goes back to any time the citizens have said we want change, and they try to make it a political change, and where, like, for instance, as well, is folks said they want an elected school committee. Well, we want one where we can control. And this is another agency that is controlled by the mayor and the police commissioner. They're not separate and independent. The Post is a separate and independent body. That's what people want. People who are there working on what's in front of them, not who they work for or who appointed them to those positions. I just said I was pleasantly surprised at the turnout. I was glad to see the diversity in the room there, but we have to build on that. You're right. Today is a continuing of that. And I know MAMLEO is not letting this go, but it's going to take these deep-rooted partnerships to move this along where, I heard people in the room calling for Commissioner Cox to go. And honestly, in my opinion, I don't think he is connected to this community. People, he grew up in this. There's a difference between growing up in a community and actually being involved in the community. And that's where I think the disconnect lies. His upbringing, his private school. I'm not saying he's entitled to that, but I think sometimes people trade that for who they really are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted, just to chime in and say, thank you for everything that you do, Larry, and I'll see you later on.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for what you do, because you don't have to do it. There are folks who are out there continuing to do the work tirelessly, and Sister Priscilla is one of them. And I was saying, with the fundraiser, I'm like, if it wasn't for these airways, we wouldn't have the opportunity to have an in-depth. The media covers this story, but we're at their mercy as what they want to report out on what we're saying, and we know that they're not going to give an hour. They're not going to give more than probably 30 seconds to it, and then it moves on. It moves on. So thank you. Looking forward to seeing you this afternoon as well. And like I said, folks, if you can stop by, because they tell me this is bigger than, and Eddie has said, this is not about him. It just happens to be his turn. What they're doing to Dr. Lopes, denying him a promotion. And that goes and ties into, the hearings that really kind of catapulted this backlash from BPD and Commissioner Cox and his team, was the fact that MAMLEO was fighting to have more people of color promoted. Somehow that's a bad idea. The mayor claims she wanted diversity, equity, and inclusion. You have officers who have high 89s in their score. Commissioner Cox got promoted with a score way less than that himself. He is a sergeant, a civil service sergeant. He was promoted to sergeant, and now he wants to deny that of other officers of color, veterans, and women. You have a real diverse group of people in this grade, Sister Priscilla, and he wants to rush another exam that we don't need in a time when we're spending almost $2 billion for something that we don't, that is really in opposition of inclusion. It just, folks, you need to pay attention to what's taking place here, because this is not, like I said, just about former Deputy Superintendent Eddie Crispin. This is about what's happening in our community. This is about us not having a voice in this. You listen to At the Round Table with MAMLEO, 617-282-0685, 617-282-0685. Pastor Hobbs, I want to get your opinion, because I think, when the work that you do behind the walls, people understand how important it is to have relationships with law enforcement, right? In building those bridges, right? Because this here seems like they're taking a wrecking ball to community relationships because they haven't paid a price. I know you guys have sat down with former Commissioner Cox and gave him some input, right? And, he said he was going to make some changes, or, had some ideas about how to enhance on that community policing and those folks. Did any of that come to fruition?
No, unfortunately, did not.
But I like a lot of people, I guess you were hopeful, right? Because it sounded like, someone who you would think they would understand and respect and at least say, let me listen. And does this make sense, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And has he called back to follow up on it? And
he has not. Nope.
No. And this is early into his.
Yes.
time as the police commissioner. And this is what I'm saying is that, you know, there are a lot of things that need to be done that aren't being done, and we're paying the price for it here. So, folks, like I said, the community meeting, it was well attended. A lot came of it, like I said, you know, to see, I think even with the city councilors who were present there and saw and heard from the community, you know, in a way that was very strong, very throated, that they weren't putting up with this anymore, and that this is not going away, because we all know usually stories in the news have 1-2 days life cycle, you know, depending on how much attention is getting. But this is continuing. It's continuing today. It's a broad section of support. Like I said, I looked around that room on Thursday night and at 7 o'clock at night, and people didn't leave. Some folks didn't leave there till 9:30, 10 o'clock. You know, and like I said, it was not the most comfortable climate to be in, a humid, hot night with no air conditioning in the building. But people stood their ground, and they just said, hey, you know, people have gone through worse than just a little bit uncomfortable. And the uncomfortability that people felt in that room, I think this administration should feel. And, you know, I think folks also, you know, this has been focused on Commissioner Cox, but Mayor Wu needs to be brought more into this, because Commissioner Cox works for her, and she is saying she supports this. We shouldn't be supporting her. You know, I tell you personally, I will be doing everything I can to, you know, if there's someone running for mayor next year, to make sure that I have a say in that, because this cannot stand. We can no longer allow people to pretend, and that's what this is, a pretense, that they have our best interests, and then they don't do anything they say they're going to do. You know, the schools are still in shambles. You know, this, well, crime is down. We go through these peaks and valleys as well. The gentrification in the city of Boston is real. You know, the housing shortage is real. And even the new construction that they're building, it's not helping the people who actually need it. You know, affordable housing, your definition, if you think $900,000 for a home is affordable, then you're in good shape. We're not talking about you. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the roundtable.
Well, brother, that depends. That depends on how much money you're making. If it's affordable housing, you know what I mean? Right. $900,000 is not affordable for the average person.
It is not, Dr. Bradley. And also, you know, the deficiency and the disconnect with someone, you know, when it's hard for you to say, oh, you know, crime is down and it's safe, when the police commissioner and the mayor, and I'm not saying they shouldn't be entitled to it, they have armed security with them 24 hours a day. Right, the mayor does. The commissioner has security with him, and they tuck him in and they pick him up in the morning, and they're with him everywhere he goes out in public. So you have a whole different vibe, a whole different feeling of what secure is. Right, there's a police car in her house, in front of her house, the mayor's house, 24 hours a day, whether they're there or not. So you don't have the same fears and concerns that the average person, because we're seeing the increase in the shootings in the city over the last few weeks, and it's been multiple people shot at times. But there's such the disconnect, Dr. Bradley. The mayor is now weighing in. She is defining, and they're saying now there is something else. And to me, that is disparaging. If you're going to put out there in the ether, Dr. Bradley, that it's not the lie that we said it was because it was a conflict, because that's been dispelled by everyone, all the way up to the attorney general, who was part of the appointing authority for Eddie Crispin to be in that situation. To now say there is something else, but we can't allude to what the something else is. So is there an open internal affairs on these other something else's? No. The only other fabricated internal affairs is the one on Dr. Loeb's.
Well, brother, there should be a desire for a police commissioner or a police organization to participate in any level of government that's going to support or foster professionalism within that organization. Mm-hmm. You know, and so that's where my concern is that you're telling me that it's a conflict of interest, but on the other side of the ledger, you're saying that you're supporting community policing and a better relationship with the community, and the very people that are actually engaging or actually accepting and trying to enforce that and try to be that example of good policing, you do not want to advance through your organization. You don't want them to participate. So basically, on any organization that's going to support community policing. So you're articulating one thing, but your action is showing another, so the two are not aligned.
Yeah.
So I think, the police department leadership needs to re-examine the message that they're pushing out from the police organization around community policing and professionalism in policing. Because if you really truly had that, you would not, remove someone from your command staff who are actually participating and working hard to make sure that not only your police department is behaving correctly, but all police departments around the state are. That's where I'm concerned, is that you're saying one thing, but your actions are not aligned with what you're saying.
Right. I think, if Greg Long had been still the commissioner, this would not have been an issue, because I know when he spoke to Eddie spoke to him as well about this. His response was congratulations, right? So clearly he didn't see any conflict in this, right? That was the right response for this. And Michael Cox, Commissioner Cox, talks about, he has the most diverse command staff. Clearly diverse doesn't mean diverse in ideas, right? Because I would want diverse ideas, not just people who are going to bow, because I'm hearing since then everyone in his leadership has been brought in, and here is the rule books, and here is, you must pledge an oath of allegiance individually. They've all been brought in, that this, you must bow to the knee. I mean, that is not a way of leadership. To me, that's an authoritarian style of thing. But also, Dr. Bradley, I put it out there, and I think folks it doesn't get as much attention. Some of the comments that he has made recently, right, where in the city council hearing where he alluded to that the reason why blacks don't do as well on exams is because we don't apply ourselves. We don't apply ourselves. And in saying to Eddie Crispin, there's a motion, he can only serve one master. Black or white. That there is language and verbs you just do not say. That just shows you how out of touch you are, right? You don't say that to anyone, but particularly you don't say that to a black person that you serve a master. Who do you think you are?
Yeah, but those are poorly chosen words, in my opinion. And I think it's just,
But see, Dr. Bradley, I don't think they're poorly chosen. And I know you and I have, because we've had these conversations off air, we had them on air, right? Sometimes, there's a slip of the tongue. You're like, wow, I probably shouldn't have said that, or that's going to come across. But when you connect all of those to the people he's chose to surround himself with, to me, it's not unlikely that that's the language that's being used in that ether with those folks, right? Because if you look at someone like Nicole Taub, right, who, like I said, has done more harm to black officers as a time as a chief legal counsel for the city of Boston, for the police department, and now she is your second in command. You're the other half of your brain, your chief of staff, someone who you talk to more than even the people on your command staff, right? Because that's a person you pick. So when you tie all of these things together, and the connection with Ed Davis, Dr. Bradley, you can't say these are just accidental slips of the tongue, because that's something you probably would expect to hear from these folks that are surrounding him, and he, to be comfortable with them saying these things.
Well, brother, I can say that we have had this debate, and you know how I feel about Mike. Yeah. And I've always tried to see him from a different perspective. I'm hurt over the fact that he's allowing that to happen to himself. But I think there's a deeper rooted issue as opposed to Mike. And Mike is one piece, but I think the police department itself is still playing the games around, this is a law enforcement agency that we will show diversity, but the diversity that you see is not actually diversity in decision making. Those individuals who are people of color and women, do not have the power that comes along with the position. So what really frustrated me when I was on the command staff, there was an anticipation that my position will lose its authority because I occupied the position. And I think that's another piece that's happening that I think that you can't lose sight of.
Well, to that point, right, and I was told that recently during the Celtics celebration, we have a female who is the chief of patrol, the first time in history, a black female who's more than capable and competent, and that they didn't feel comfortable with her. They brought in a retired superintendent who held that position, a white male, to oversee the Celtics celebration. Now, what does that say about your confidence in our folk? And like you said, it goes to the undermining of, well, we can have them there symbolically, but when important things come up, we got to throw somebody else in the mix.
Well, see, my response to that, my response to that would be: have they ever done that before? And if they have not, why now?
No,
because that really speaks to what I just mentioned.
That's what I'm talking about.
You know, the position lose some type of authority or some type of, it's not as
it doesn't have its luster.
It doesn't have to exactly because of who's occupying the position,
right.
And that's one of the things that I battled with as a former, commander of 911. I did all that work,
right.
And then you're telling me, well, you know what? Well, maybe you can't make this decision. What do you mean I can't make this decision?
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying.
What does that mean?
Right. I want to throw this out to you. We got another call I want to bring into the conversation. Because
I have another call coming in. I have another call coming in.
Okay. All right. So thank you, Dr. Bradley. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the roundtable. Caller, you there?
Hello. Good morning. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Good morning, brother.
All right. Peace. This is Jamal. How you doing?
Good morning. Is your dashboard up and running?
What did you say now?
I said, is your dashboard working?
Oh, yeah. No, it's crazy. But you know what? I've heard Pastor Wall talk in the past about some of the problems with black churches and, people leaving and, da-da-da-da. Well, that meeting gave me a great idea for 12th Baptist Church for a new income stream. And I don't know if they know, but, hot yoga and saunas are all the rage. And if they just rented out their room and let people do the hot yoga in there and the sauna, they could make a bunch of money.
I told him, I said, well, I must have lost 20 pounds in there. I told Eddie, I called him, I said, brother, there's much love for you when people are in there, trying to huddle next to the one fan they had blowing in there and just taking on that heat,
What was crazy, what brought me a blast from the past from my childhood, over there on the bookshelf, was still some of those the fans with the wooden stick.
Right. Those are the ones you saw on church on Sunday or either at a funeral. They would hand those out to you, and they would want them back before you leave.
Exactly. That reminded me of all the little old church ladies with the hats on.
Right.
Yeah. But
Jamal,
the meeting itself. I thought was good. My presentation didn't really get into. Because obviously we were crunched for time, so I couldn't, do a whole dissertation. But the one thing about it, I would have thought, Eddie Crispin, having been a member alongside with myself and Marie St. Fleur, I'm just talking about the people who were at the meeting, because obviously a lot of other people, but task force members. If anything, I would have thought that would be more of a conflict of interest, because now you're in the position that you're going to reshape the rules that the Boston police may have to go under. So if anybody would have thought it was a threat, I would have thought that would be the threat. And there was no problem there. No conflict of interest being on the police reform task force.
But I think, to your point, and you raise a very good one, because when Eddie at the time of that, I believe he was a sergeant, right? And then he was appointed to deputy superintendent, and his first assignment was internal affairs. So you're right. He had just, you bring up a very good point. He just served on this task force, and now he's in charge of implementing it. So he has more of an involvement. He would have had more of an involvement, I would say, as the deputy superintendent of internal affairs than as on the post with information.
Yeah, and I think that's just a set of skills and experience that's invaluable. How many people in the entire department, have that? Not many.
No.
So, coupled with, his educational, coupled with, his community involvement, and then that's another thing, just, for the benefit of the listening audience. Many folks, know you and I go do the Feed the Hood thing, every Sunday. And I'm actually on my way there now, because they sometimes give an extra day or whatever, so they're asking me to come get food. I'm on my way there now. Eddie has been a guy, such as yourself, that I can call and say, hey, you got some families, or you got an organization that's in need. And as it just happened, Eddie wasn't even in town. He was out vacation on some family stuff. Shouldn't even have answered his phone.
Yeah.
Right? But answers his phone And I'm telling him, yeah. He's like, oh, brother, I'm not even in town. I'm like, all right, well, don't worry about it. He's like, no, I'm going to call you back in 10 minutes. And then he made a connection, not even in town, and then I was able to deliver food. That was last week. Now, because of that connection last week, Larry, as you know, I got some socks and stuff. You got some socks from MAMLEO and all this. I was able to deliver socks to the same location that Eddie hooked me up with. I just did that yesterday, and then I ran into Officer Manny Camberville,
Manny Camberville, yeah.
So once again, connections, and now Manny's like, oh, thank you and whatnot. This is true community and policing partnership, so that to me should be applauded and replicated and duplicated. They need to write this in the doggone manual. Like the academy needs to see this.
Right, but see the
and
problem.
So to me, it's opposite of everything that we should be promoting.
Right, because see, this goes back to I remember having a conversation with a leader, and as a matter of fact, he was second in command, during the Menino administration, and I was told there will never, and they said it twice. There will never be another Billy Celesta, right? And so I knew exactly what they meant, because what they were saying, what they were conveying to me was that Billy had too much support in the community, and when they wanted to get rid of him, it couldn't. And so this is just another example of that, because really now what they want of people of color to be in leadership is that you have no connections to the community. So if they need to get rid of you, the community won't be outraged, because they won't miss you if they don't know you, right? And see, Eddie, that's just who he is. It's in his DNA. It's in my DNA. It is in Jeff Lopes, the current president of MAMLEO, because our charter is that we work with the community, right? And it's not something that we just say, it's what we do. And because we have such a deep relationship, the three of us, because we understand, I tell people, until you walk in those shoes, you don't understand it. But that's why I said, Jamal, and I ask people, like, give me the names of 3 people who are in leadership in the Boston Police Department. Most people struggle if they get past Nora and Eddie, right? And the same thing, like you call me, Pastor Wall, Pastor Haas, Priscilla. People in the community call me. They call people because they know, right? No matter what we're doing, we're going to be responsive to that, and we don't need a title to do that. Because the title that benefits that individual personally in some ways. But for me, it is about giving back. And that's what Eddie, so it doesn't matter where we are. If we can help with the problem, that's what we're going to do. But tell me who else in the police department that you can call on like that and get a response, because you probably don't even have their number, including the commissioner.
Yeah, exactly. And I wanted to say this too about your comments about the commissioner. One thing I have to do, because as I've said, I personally like Commissioner Cox.
I like
Michelle Wu. But I disagree. I disagree with this decision clearly. But some of the things that have emerged now, I have to say, as a researcher, right? I do notice some patterns here in some of the same critiques that arose from when he just got here from where was it again? I forget the town he came from.
Who, Cox?
Yeah.
From Ann Arbor.
Yeah, there you go.
Right.
Ann Arbor or St. Arbor?
Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Where they claim he was creating a hostile work environment.
When I was reading up on him then, just when they were talking about bringing him in, or shortly after it was announced, I read about some of the scandals, out there that had happened, and some of the critiques that the people out there had, and a lot of this had to do with, I think they said a hostile work environment, but some of the similar kind of elements here that are coming out. What you're talking about, the dictatorial workplace,
autocratic,
yeah. So it was very. Now I'm catching a flashback and like, wow, so this seems like this could have some very eerie similarities, and I hope that this is not a pattern that is going to continue.
Well, they say, Jamal, a leopard doesn't change its spots. And this is why I say people always say the best lesson is the one you teach yourself. And like, to me, well, it's not personal. These are not personal attacks, but we can't ignore, like you said, to your credit, you went back and said, wait a minute, this is a pattern.
I do believe
here.
people can change.
Right, they can change, but
too, I need evidence.
You have to look at the reality.
So
exactly.
This evidence here is leaning more towards the fact of
we're right. It's the same behavior.
Same old.
Right. And this is what I'm saying. And this is something that when this decision was being made, the mayor should have taken this into consideration because, I think that was ignored. Honestly, because, throughout her whole time, Mayor Wu, when she was a city council, when she was a president of council, when I was president of MAMLEO, I went to her about these issues. She did not want to touch them. She did not want to deal with them. And I think today she doesn't want to deal with police issues. I think her approach is I put people in these positions and then I'm going to let them do it. Well, sometimes as the leader, if it's not working, you may have to tweak it. And you're not taking over it. But when there are problems that arise like this and they make no sense, they're nonsensical, you have to then show some leadership and just can't say, well, I am going to blindly support them because I put them in there, even when they're doing wrong, because you'll pay a price for that. And like you said, Jamal, you look at this and say, okay, now you're going to try to disparage it and say, well, now that this fabricated conflict of interest has been dispelled by everyone, like I said, from the AG's office down to the executive director to the Post Commission itself, and people have put out statements that this is not true. Now you're going to put out there in the ether that there is something else amiss here with Eddie Crispin, but we can't say what it is. But is there an internal affairs? Is it that one complaint that was dismissed at OPAT against Eddie Crispin? No, there is nothing. So to disparage this man in that way and then say, well, we didn't say what it was, we just said there's something else and we didn't allude to it was, that's just as damning as them by not saying it. Am I stretching here, Jamal? I mean, when I keep hearing that from them, when people out, they said there's something else. Did they say what it was?
And here, this is when I got to put my former criminal hat on. Mm-hmm. You could allege all you want.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But if you got evidence or you do not have evidence, right?
You can't use hearsay in court.
It's the same thing. In the community, there's been some scuttlebutt with, a couple of naysayers who clearly don't like Eddie. Mm-hmm. And so they've begun saying some things. And then also, too, there was some comments in the articles in the Globe. And I love the Globe comments, too, because people just, they log in anonymously, and then they could say, oh, yeah, well, Larry Ellison's a murderer.
Right,
he has 3 dead bodies in his backyard.
Right.
And there's no, anonymous, there's no fact check or whatever. But so some people have said some wild things.
Yeah. Well,
but nobody has been able to show anything.
Right. Well, that was to that point, and I'm not trying to interject myself into this comment. When I served on the Post Commission, right, someone filed anonymously an ethics violation against me. And it was so erroneous, and it was that I was doing post work while I was on duty, right? Well, the hearings didn't all take place during that, but I had already gotten approval from, at the time, the acting commissioner, Greg Lund, because I said, hey, in case this is a conflict here, I just want to be clear and make sure that I have your approval. So I had already covered that. But they were trying to stretch. Oh, we got it. You couldn't find anything of any relevance, right? Any significance. So you go after what you thought was the low-hanging fruit to try to disparage that the fact that an ethics violation that sounds bad in itself, or on itself, that there's an ethics violation against me. Ooh, he has some immoral character. You see the work, that the damage that they try to do to people just because you're trying to do the right thing. And yet,
well, this is why too, and Pastor Hobbs can probably tell us exactly where it is. But I know in the Bible it talks about avoiding even the appearance of evil.
Yeah.
Right? Because what it is when you're trying to do something correctly, we have to stay extra squeaky clean.
That's
working a job or whatever, we're already under the scrutiny.
Right.
So we have to make sure we're not doing anything that even looks like it's bad. Right? And always covering our bases. And yes, always being the first to say, hey, listen, this is what's going on.
Right.
I'm going to need this time right here or whatever. Because if not, they will use every opportunity against you.
But see, shame on us, and this is why I'm happy to see folks are rallying around Eddie, because like I said many times, this just happens to be Eddie's turn, right? Because there is nothing there that disqualifies him from serving in both positions, and you're right. But see, this is how I live my life anyway. So I tell you want to follow me around, you get bored, because you follow me home. You follow me out in the community doing things. You follow me with my family. That's what I do. So I don't have to adapt because I'm worried about a camera or someone. But the fact that they can put that out there and make it seem like there's an appearance. Look, so I tell them the only appearance of anything wrong is what they're doing. Instead of, saying, hey, come on out. It's like when they got rid of Dennis White. Of a matter that was 20 years old, right? A personal matter, right? And I'm not saying it shouldn't have been investigated, but you see how quickly black people are dismissed in leadership over things that others get a pass. I mean, we got a person who can be president again with 34 felony convictions. That's not a disqualifier. But Eddie serving in an honorable position on the post, he has to lose his position? Come on,
not for nothing. I just saw the news last week about Tommy Nee, the old Boston Police Patrolmen's Union president.
The second one in a row, right, to be convicted, right, of a felony, right? The other one.
I was going to say, Larry Calderon better check out that Bible verse. Not even the appearance of evil.
And the other one there that's in jail now for rape of a child. I mean, so this one, but they don't talk about those things, and
I forgot that he's actually in jail right now.
Yeah, Rose.
I need to get his address and write him a letter, and it's going to start off, ha ha.
Wow, you're crazy.
No, literally, because I